From the city to the counties, from the mountains to the ocean, Maryland's weather source has declared a weather aware day. Hello, everyone. Hope you've had a good week. Happy New Year to you. As we begin this new trip around the sun, unfortunately, we do have an unsettled weather pattern that's going to be taking place. Let's talk in terms of the actual numbers at Thurgood Marshall, 41.34. The high on Thursday, 44.27 the benchmark. We do need precipitation, and we will get at least some form of help with the next rounds that will be coming through, at least to some degree, especially in areas that really need it, let's say along and east of the Chesapeake. But we'll talk more about the precipitation and the lack thereof in a moment. Let's talk lows and highs on Thursday statewide. It was 19 out in the mountains, 40 by the bay for a really wide spread in terms of our temperatures to start off, and that spread did not budge a whole lot, compressed or expand, because it was just a large variation, a lot of parity within the temperature terms here. It was 25 out in Oakland for the afternoon high on Thursday. Salisbury got to 53, which, to put it into perspective, they start out at 34. How about that? A little bit of a crazy, unsettled second day of the year 2025 in terms of our temperatures. Unfortunately, the more unsettled weather will spread into actual precipitation and the overall general weather patterns that we will have, as we do have 2 rounds of winter precipitation that will be making their way through the state. The first one's Friday. When you're seeing this recording, this one's already brought some issues. And let me go over, by the way, to... Let's do severe space. And we will talk about this real quickly. So, winter storm warning, Garrett County, right? Between half a foot and 10 inches of snow, winds gusting as high as 50 miles per hour. And that's from 6 a.m. Friday through 10 a.m. Saturday morning. So it's going to be a prolonged event, and there will be lake effect snow, by the way, potentially on the back end of this. So, Garrett County going to be in for quite some snow there. Winter weather advisory, extreme western Allegheny County, 2 to 4 inches of snow, winds gusting as high as 40 miles per hour. And then Mount Holly and Sterling kind of did a patchwork of winter weather advisories. This includes Frederick, Carroll, Howard, Baltimore City, Howard, Cecil, Kent, Queen Anne's, Caroline counties. That will go. The one for Queen Anne's and Caroline County and the Eastern Shore, I believe that one, yeah, that's 3 to 10. I believe the Cecil one is the 1 to 7, and that is the 1 to 7. That's Cecil back west to Frederick. So do be mindful that we will have this system moving through, and this is evening rush hour, by the way. We'll talk about that more in detail in a second, but that is something that is very much needed to be considered when looking at this. So going back to main graphics here and talking about the main specifics here in a moment. But first things first, we got to talk rainfall for 2024, because, man, the second half of the year was abysmal. And my apologies for not fixing the transition on the graphic here, but we had 1.70 in December. We should have been at 2.25. And then you combine all the numbers. Again, ignore the month by month. I forgot to update that one, but we finished with 37 flat. We should be at 45 flat. Do the math. We were 8 inches below where we should be. We will have some precipitation. How much will help? It remains to be seen. But let's talk our current dynamics here in terms of our main players. We do have this system out in the Midwest that's going to be Friday's Clipper. That's the one that's going to cause the issues with rush hour Friday, maybe give us an inch or 2 of snow in some locations, and maybe locally 3 to 4 if we get under some heavy bands, but that's very contingent. And then we have this secondary system that's just hitting the Pacific coast. That's going to be heading our way, and that's the big system that's going to cause all the problems for Monday, potentially at least. But things are, I shouldn't really be saying potentially, because things are starting to line up, but even then, we're several days out, and the main specifics on who will get what exactly is still remained to be seen. So with that said, let's go into our timeline here. Here's Friday. The first round of snow will strike. This is Friday afternoon, Friday evening. 2 inches, maybe more locally in the metro. And as I mentioned, it could be 6 to 10 in the mountainous ranges, but I think somewhere between, let's say 7 and 8 for most locally, and that's going to be the general range. The low and the cold front system will make their way through with this clipper, by the way. And that is a primary low that will bring in some really cold air on the back end of this for Saturday. I think the best chances, again, for winter precipitation are north and west of I-95. Here is Saturday. There's that cold air I was talking about. We do have tight pressure gradients, which will mean strong wind gusts, potentially up to 30 miles per hour, maybe even greater in some areas. Notice there's still a little bit of lake effect snow out in far western Maryland and Appalachia. Let's talk about the timeline of the Euro. There's that clipper, and here's the big storm. The Euro is being really aggressive here with the main storm for Monday, taking that rain-snow line farther to the south. The low-pressure center really, I think, would be over, like, let's say, the Virginia-North Carolina border and south of the Potomac. That's where we would have the most problems if that track were to hold. Now, the GFS is being a little bit more conservative, taking the track of the storm a little bit farther north, at least the center of it. This may help mix in our far southern communities, Charles, St. Mary's, Calvert, Dorchester, Wycomico, Somerset, Worcester counties. More to the north, we have at least mixing and primarily snow for a good chunk of us, let's say along I-70 and points northward. So, yes, a complicated forecast, still some things to iron out, a little bit of disagreements between the models, but keep tuned to a source of weather information throughout the weekend as this event does approach. Now, let's talk here in terms of snow totals, and yes, it is quite complicated, but I can do the direct comparisons for y'all here. Here is the GFS. We talked about that more conservative track, taking it closer to the Potomac River. I know there's a 5.3 down there in Waldorf, La Plata, but that's locally. But generally speaking, we're talking that 2 to 3 inch track if that were to hold for much of southern Maryland and our southern communities. Now, down near Salisbury, they could get 2 inches locally, maybe up to 3, but really it's being a lot less aggressive in the southern communities. Meanwhile, north of US 50, I mean, DC Metro northward, Gaithersburg to, let's say, College Park, Bowie, and then up through Metro Baltimore and out west, really aggressive totals could be up to, 7, 8 inches of snow, potentially. That's rather significant if that were to hold. Now, the Euro is being super aggressive here in terms of the overall widespread substantial snowfall. Could be 7 or 8 throughout both metros, but more snow to the south as well. Notice Salisbury's trying to pick up on 5.1 according to the Euro, 7.1 in Waldorf, La Plata. Now, do not take these numbers set to stone. Take them with a very, very heavy grain of salt because a lot of things can change, a lot of dynamics can change, and that can easily alter the totals in this particular forecast. But I want to give you a direct comparison of the two biggest models in terms of the snowfall totals and what we usually look at. Now, there's also a few ensemble models I've looked at. A lot of them looked at the high probability of some substantial snow and maybe even some snow greater than 4 inches. But that's kind of contingent on where this track goes. And the GFS has kind of been, again, conservative with that. Now, let's recap everything that I just mentioned because I know it's a lot to digest. If the low passes more south of the Potomac River towards the Virginia-North Carolina border, we will get in on a lot of snow widespread across the state. We will have a snow mix to start initially for everybody. It's just a matter of what this does change over to if that track were to hold or change either way depending on the situation. So if it does pass more south, mainly snow north and west of I-95. In the metros, a mixing / snow, and then maybe a late transition to rain in our far southern communities. And this also depends on temperature changes and dynamics at the time as well. So I want to take that and let you know about that. So really just take this with a grain of salt. If the low passes closer to the Potomac, then things get a little bit more dicey. Snow then mix in the metropolitan areas, rain more or less, let's say south of US 50. Once you get to our far southern communities, there will be a change over to rain basically guaranteed if that track does hold. And it would probably be a little bit earlier. And still mainly snow north and west of I-95, western Maryland, north central Maryland, closer to the Mason-Dixon line. I know it's a lot to digest. I know it's a lot to really think about, but it's something that you really need to be mindful of for Monday.
The haze in the barn!
Ravens, 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 Ravens. Please win this game. Clear conditions. Yes, it will be cold. Yes, it's the Browns. We lost to them earlier in the season. We need redemption. This is for the division. In the words of Al Davis, just win, baby. Commanders are on the road this week. Maryland is done. Thank goodness. That team was disappointing. Mitchell meter for the weekend. 4. It will be cold. It will be windy. We will have lingering snow out in the mountains. It will not be the best weekend, okay? Just do keep that in mind. It will be freezing your socks off cold in some locations. We may have wind chill alerts as well. For the next 7, I'm giving it a 3. It is unpleasant. We will have that winter system, potentially a winter storm on Monday, and we have some really cold air behind that as well. So, yes, the mercury is going to tank once again. Let's talk region by region here, starting with Western Maryland. For Saturday, snow lingering out west in the morning, maybe into the early afternoon. Temperatures may not even get up to 20 degrees out there in the west. It will be super, super cold out in those mountainous ranges. Closer to the metropolitan areas of Hagerstown and Frederick, we may get to freezing. That is all, pretty much. And some clouds lingering on early in the day. Sunday, those clouds do increase throughout the afternoon. As that low-pressure system starts to approach, it will be cold on Sunday morning out west. 9 degrees, maybe locally down to 8 or 7. And wind chill indices, depending on how strong those winds are, could be close to 0. So do keep that in mind. Around freezing again in the urban areas of Western Maryland. Down in Southern Maryland, yes, it will be cold, but not quite as cold as out west. If you do have any watch party plans, if you do have any plans to go out and about this weekend, just wear layers. It's not going to be that warm out there. We'll have temperatures running, let's say, 8 to 10 degrees below normal in most locations. Eastern Shore, the same thing. We'll have clear conditions on Saturday. Sunday, clouds pick up once again, and that's pretty much a statewide trend. And then down in the lower Delmarva, goodness, Sunday morning, you're going to feel the chill. Temperatures will really, really not be all that great in the grand scheme of things. 40 maybe by the coastline, but just cold. Just way too cold for this time of the year. But it's to be expected. It's winter. Everybody has their preferences in terms of how cold they like the weather during the winter. This is just too much. But looking at Metro Baltimore for the weekend, yes, Saturday's cold. Sunday morning will be especially cold. Do be mindful if you have any plans out there. Moving forward in time, you can see Monday we do have that aware day in place because of the upcoming system. Could be rather significant. And then look at the cold air on the back end of this. Barely the freezing Tuesday and Wednesday, below freezing Thursday. Morning lows in the teens, could be lower with those wind chills if any wind gets involved. Stay safe, be warm, be mindful, and keep an eye on the weather for Monday because it will be very important. Take care. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you next week.